Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Alright, another entry here based on one of your newer suggestions. This one having to do with a variation of the more commonly known Bigfoot here in the US, if but for the fact these sightings, and there's a bunch of them in fact, happen to occur there in Australia. Normally I wouldn't talk about Bigfoot related stuff, but the reason why I picked this one was because in looking at the information, number one, it definitely stood out when it came to all the sightings. I mean, hundreds of them practically that people have reported up to most recent day sightings too. I can't think of anything like that on the US side when it comes to the Bigfoots. And then also it has to do with the fact that this creature is apparently very vicious. I mean, this is something where people have reported the way it harms animals and maybe humans too is again a huge difference from the average known sighting of the Bigfoot. So I thought I would definitely share all that information here, and it has to do with the cryptid known as the Yowie, which you're looking at a picture of here. Interestingly enough, the Yowie also goes by other names, including, if you can believe it, the Yahoo. So just like the webpage Yahoo, this Yowie is also known under that name, I guess in different interpretations, but it's more commonly known as the Yowie. So what is this creature, this Yowie, this fearsome looking creature you're looking at now? Well, again, think of your average Bigfoot from the US, but just tweaked a little bit and then landed there in Australia, and that's what you'll have. You'll have the Yowie. It's been around apparently for a very, very long time. So much so that it's pretty much part of their mythology. Like it has been since the Aborigine days. Like we're talking civilizations of who knows how long back. Stories related to it, at least recent time stories, stuff where people actually started documenting encounters, go back to about the 1800s too. So anything involving this creature, we're talking several hundred years as far as the most reported written statements, and then just telltale signs of stories, those that are handed down generations. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of years. As far as its characteristics, its physical characteristics, yes, it does look like, again, like your average Bigfoot, but again, there's slight tweaks associated to it. Its height ranges anywhere from a shorter stance than your average Bigfoot. It can be as small as 4 feet tall, and then as large as 9 feet tall. And then unlike the Bigfoot, which seems to have like a darker fur of some sort, even sometimes like a black coated fur, this one, it seems like its darkest color is more along the lines of brown, but it seems to have more encounters where people state that it has reddish fur. So that is a big difference as well. Imagine something like this in the distance with having very, very long coats of reddish fur. It would absolutely stand out for you. Also, it seems to have very large talon-like claws on its feet. Again, a big difference from known sightings of Bigfoot. And then also nails, like it seems to have very long nails within its hand, very sharp too as well. And then perhaps the biggest difference of all seems to be the fact that it has 2 fangs on the front of its mouth. So almost like a dog would have fangs protruding from the front of its mouth. Like if you pull up your average dog, the front of the mouth, and you'll see those 2 fangs in front of it. Very same concept, but here it's associated with the Yowie. Now, as far as its interactions and its characteristics there, I was mentioning earlier, it's a lot different than the Bigfoot one. We all know the lore of Bigfoot here in the US, how when people normally encounter it, they simply see it scamper off, like it'll just run away. It wants nothing to do with any kind of bad encounters with people. It doesn't want to create havoc, at least that I can recall. I'm sure there's probably some stories out there that seem to be different, but the usual consensus is that Bigfoot is more like a peaceful animal that'll just move away if it encounters any type of human civilization or anything else. In this case, the Yowie though is much more different. It's so much so, in fact, that it actively charges at people. It actively attacks people. It attacks animals. And in fact, on its more vicious side, there have been reports of it apparently tearing off the heads of dogs and then tearing off the heads of kangaroos as well there in Australia. And people have reported encounters with it scampering around their area, so in this case coming around their home, maybe coming around their business, and people being frightened of it. I mean, this thing is absolutely intimidating them, and I don't know if it was necessarily attacking them. I didn't find a specific story for that, but it's the usual circumstance of people saying that they've heard others that have had that happen to them, but no individual specific encounter that I could think of. But considering the fact of what it does to other animals, so much so that there in certain parts of Australia, whenever there's a mutilated animal, in this case like let's say a lost dog, and then it's found to not have been eaten but instead just torn apart, then people presume that it is the Yowie yet again within their area. Another telltale sign is of having a Yowie nearby. They seem to have a really horrific scream. It is considered a blood curling scream of some sort. Something where in the dead of night, if you hear this, you'll absolutely know that it's a Yowie. So that seems to be another way to tell that you are nearby a Yowie. Now let's go back real quickly to some of the encounters with the Aborigines there in Australia. The most earliest known jotted down written encounters again seem to be in the early 1800s, generally around the 1840s or so. But yes, some of those encounters there, people stated that one of them was, and they refer to the Yowie here as the Yahoo, because again I mentioned that's one of the other names that it goes by that people describe it with. But the natives of Australia stated that they met something. They described it as something resembling a man of nearly the same height of a man, but interestingly enough, it had very long white hair hanging down from its head. That's another thing, by the way, too, about its physical characteristics. That long matted fur that I was mentioning earlier, apparently it seems to cover, in various reports, sightings of people of this thing, it covers its eyes. So I guess think of it like a dog. How some of those dogs, they have the front of their face of their the fur in front of their face covering their eyes. Same concept here. But yes, there was long white hair hanging down from the head right over the features. The arms were considered extraordinarily long, and it had great talons, furnished with extremities of great talons. And then also, I read this in other places, apparently it has, at least it appears to people, in this one in particular with this encounter, this written encounter in the 1840s, that its feet seem to be turned backwards. And apparently the whole concept of this is whenever it's running, either it turns its feet backwards or it permanently has its feet backwards. Either way, the footprint that it creates makes it seem like it's running a different direction, even though it's truly heading in the opposite direction. So almost like a subterfuge, like it's trying to confuse anyone who's trying to follow it. It'll make it seem like it's going one direction when it's truly going the other. So is this some form of counterattack from it? Is this some form of defense that it has? Could be, who knows? But that was also very interesting to point out too. And then I was mentioning earlier all the more recent encounters. Absolutely, just go to the Wikipedia page associated with the Yowie and you'll have several of them listed there, all of them pretty fascinating. The idea that people see these within various regions. I mean, there's one of a tale of a couple who were driving down some kind of coast and they saw a Yowie. It was a shaggy creature of some sort, and it had the long arms I was mentioning earlier, and it had the long shaggy hair on it too. Couldn't have been anything else because it was absolutely, according to them, walking upright. So it's not like it was like an ape or something that was mistaken for Yowie. No, in this case, this thing was clearly walking upright. Then there's another one that was stating that they saw it somewhere in the Blue Mountains at a place called Springwood. They even apparently filmed it and took photographs of the footprints. The footprints also seem to be hotly debated item within encounters of the Yowie, because people will state that it is the Yowie, others will state it's just something else that's misinterpreted at the Yowie. So there was various stuff I was reading about footprints and how a lot of people seem to be contesting them too. But yes, there was even one in 2012. A television crew apparently recorded audio of the Yowie. So all this stuff, I mean, this is all very recent, up to just a couple of years back. So that was a big difference too when I normally talk about other cryptids and how those encounters seem to be a long time ago. No, in this case, we have very, very recent ones. And if you can believe it, one last thing too about the Yowie, so popular it remains there in Australia that there's even some hunters, some Yowie hunters that go across the realms of Australia to try to find this creature. Like there's a guy named Rex Gilmore who apparently is someone that believes in the Yowie and then tries to find it too. And then there's another guy by a name, very, very distinct name, Tim the Yowie Man. So he is someone that has tracked all these Yowie sightings and then tries to make sure that he can, I guess, find them or try to find more proof associated with this creature. So a whole bunch of info. Again, none of this I knew even existed. Never heard of the Yowie before, but it was great to find all this information and be able to share it with you. But that's it. That's everything I have with regards to the Yowie, otherwise known sometimes as the Yahoo. If anyone has any more information, anything they'd like to share, anyone from Australia with this creature being so big there, if anyone has been from there, that you're bound to have some stories related to encounters there. So if you have anything like that, please post them below. It's usually one of those things where people know someone, a coworker, a cousin, whatever, someone that states that they've encountered this thing. That would be really awesome to hear. So, alright everybody, thanks again as always. Take care.